The closing bell has rung, but the business story continues. I'm Robert Tan, you're watching Business Brief. Let's get started. Marcos hospitalized but returns to work. Impeachment complaints filed against President Ferdinand Marcos. Palay buying price set at 17 to 21 pesos to protect farmers amid harvest season. SP New Energy to rebrand as MGen distances itself from Leviste's Solar Philippines. Kospi surges past 5,000 on AI-driven tech auto gains. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was hospitalized overnight after experiencing discomfort. Ivy Reyes is on the line for more details. Go ahead, Ivy. Ivy? Ivy, okay, we'll get back to Ivy Reyes. Meanwhile, a second and a third impeachment complaint against President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. were filed today, with Bayan claiming the first is already deemed submitted, while another group showed up with impeach ribbons for their case. Joan Manalo is on the line for the details. Go ahead, Joan.
Robert, the second impeachment complaint against President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. faced a procedural hitch today after the Office of the House Secretary General declined to receive it. Progressive group Bagong Alyansang Makabayan or Bayan said the complaint was not accepted because House Secretary General Cheloy Garafil was out of the office and the executive director present was not authorized to receive the document. Garafil is currently out of office, prompting the Office of the Secretary General to defer the receipt of their complaint. The complainants, however, disputed this, arguing that under House rules, an impeachment complaint is considered filed upon submission to the Office of the Secretary General, regardless of the Secretary General's personal presence. Despite the setback, Bayan and its co-complainants maintained that the complaint is already deemed filed and served. The impeachment complaint is anchored on alleged betrayal of public trust, with Bayan claiming a systematic top-down scheme of plunder linked to alleged irregularities in flood control projects from 2022 to 2025. The complaint cites three proposed articles of impeachment, namely institutionalizing systemic corruption and patronage, abuse of discretionary power over unprogrammed appropriations, and alleged direct involvement in kickback schemes. The complaint is endorsed by Makabayan Bloc lawmakers, ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, Gabriela Party List Representative Sara Elago, and Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co. The complainants said they left a copy of the impeachment complaint with the Office of the Secretary General, insisting that they have complied with House rules. However, they said they have not yet received an official received copy. Bayan added that it will now be up to the House Secretary General Cheloy Garafil upon her return on Monday to perform what it describes as her ministerial duty, formally receiving the complaint and immediately referring it to the office of House Speaker Boji D. Meanwhile, a separate group also moved to file a third impeachment complaint against President Marcos. The complainants include former Congressman Mike Defensor, Attorney Manuelito Luna, Attorney Harold Respicio, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio, Kathy Binag, and Virgilio Garcia. The group said the complaint is a people's impeachment case, which they claim is filed also on the grounds of betrayal of public trust. Former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavez Singson and former AFP Chief of Staff Hermogenes Esperon were also present to show what the complainants described as moral support. When asked by the media about their congressional endorsers, the complainants declined to identify them, saying these lawmakers could face possible harassment if named. The group arrived at the House of Representatives wearing peach-colored ribbons, which they said symbolize impeach. However, earlier, the complainants said that they weren't really able to file the complaint and proceeded not to leave any copy of the complaint to the House of Secretary General. This means that there is no third impeachment complaint against President Bongbong Marcos, and they will instead seek other legal options or remedies to push through with their agenda. Robert.
Thank you for that report, Joan Manalo. Meanwhile, we have Ivy Reyes back on the line regarding Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s overnight hospitalization. Ivy, go ahead.
Yes, Robert, Malacanang confirms that PBBM was indeed hospitalized overnight at St. Luke's Medical Center in QC, but the president's medical bulletin was not released due to privacy concerns. Meanwhile, the palace maintains that PBBM is in good condition and went back to work as early as dawn of this morning. Robert, the president was supposed to attend to a presidential engagement at the palace today to award the 10 most outstanding young men of 2025, but was represented by Executive Secretary Ralph Recto instead. While it was announced to the Malacanang press corps last night, the reason for the president's absence was only released today. Malacanang said the president went back to work today and is currently in private meetings. Robert, just to give an update on PBBM's private meeting with E.S. Recto on the anti-dynasty bill, they have spoken about the specifics of this priority legislation, including the degree of familial relationship, levels of ban, positions covered in the national and local government, and the timing of the prohibition. This means that it is yet to be decided whether the ban on dynasties will cover simultaneous or successive positions. That's the latest here from the Malacanang Palace. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you for that report, Ivy Reyes. The Armed Forces of the Philippines denies online claims accusing AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Bronner Jr. of honor code violations and alleged ghost projects. The AFP says resurfaced posts are false and form part of a disinformation campaign aimed at undermining the military's leadership. The military stresses there is no complaint, investigation, or finding to support claims that Bronner violates the Philippine Military Academy Honor Code. The AFP also denies receiving 15 billion pesos for ghost projects, saying the funds refer to the TICAS program handled solely by the Department of Public Works and Highways. The Department of Justice may issue subpoenas this week over separate plunder complaints filed against Senators Jinggoy Estrada and Bong Revilla. Prosecutor General Richard Dong Fadulyon says preliminary hearings may be set by the end of the month with possible filings of charges before Philippine courts or the Sandigan Bayan by mid-February. The DOJ is also conducting preliminary investigations into 6 malversation complaints linked to alleged anomalous flood control projects involving Wawa Builders and Top Notch Catalyst Builders Incorporated, with Senator Joel Villanueva named as a respondent. Padulyon says strong evidence is needed before cases are filed, as Revilla and Estrada both deny any involvement in alleged ghost flood control projects. A political analyst is urging President Bongbong Marcos' administration to pursue a long-term solution to curb systemic corruption. On Bilyonaryo News channels at the forefront, University of the East professor Eric De Torres says the government has taken initial steps to address issues like the flood control scandal. However, he stresses these efforts fall short, warning that stronger, more concrete actions are needed to strengthen governance.
We cannot just look at it from his administration. That's why reforms are actually very important. But more importantly, how does this affect also the economic stability of the country? Investments and the perception, not just the Filipino people, but elsewhere.
Meanwhile, De Torres urges the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to ask the hard questions on the flood control probe. He commends committee chair Senator Ping Lacson for continuing the hearings, but notes the proceedings' failure to address key allegations.
The opening statement of Senator Ping was very, very strong about sending a message across the critics. But at the same time, he used the effort, but it somehow doesn't translate to the manner by which the hearings are actually conducted.
Blockchain may secure data, but it may not be enough to stop corruption happening behind closed doors. This according to former DICT Undersecretary Jeffrey D. On BNC's The Spokes, D pushes back against claims that blockchain is 101% hack-free and can automatically curb corruption. D says such statements often come from marketing, not academics or tech educators. He further notes blockchain cannot monitor offline processes, including secret talks, commission deals, or how bids and awards committees decide on government contracts.
But part is true is that blockchain is one of the many technologies
Right.
that you can bring trust into a digital document. That part is true. At least who produced the document,
May
not
trail, at
necessarily
least.
whether the document's contents are correct,
Yeah.
but at least who produced the document.
Correct.
He or she cannot deny it.
You know,
The warrants that confusing data integrity with clean governance risk misleading the public. For businesses, the message is clear. Technology can support transparency, but it cannot replace strong oversight, governance, and accountability systems. Wanted businessman Atong Ang is believed to be in Cambodia or Thailand. The Department of Interior and Local Government says this, citing whistleblower Julie Patidongan. DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla says Ang may have used backdoor routes to evade authorities and could have set up online sabong operations in the region. He adds that any decision on canceling Ang's passport or taking further action will be elevated to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Remulla warned that Ang is still considered armed and dangerous, with arrest warrants issued for his alleged role in the disappearance of sabongeros. We'll take a short break. This is Business Brief. The government is unveiling big, bold economic reforms, from digital tax collections to faster customs clearance, promising lower costs and more predictable rules for business. Officials say these moves mark a turning point, but markets have heard similar promises before. Investors are now watching whether execution holds and if confidence follows in the months ahead. And to assess what's truly new, what's still holding the market back, and how companies could benefit, we'll be speaking with investment coach Julian Tarobago. Good afternoon, Julian, and welcome to Business Brief.
Good afternoon, Robert. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, Julian, the government announced its big, bold reforms on January 16. You've said this time feels different. What is genuinely new here, and what feels like more of the same?
What's new, I believe, is the admission that the problems are structural. Government said that the problem isn't foreign investors or the economy, it's our own bureaucratic friction. So that's a bit unusual for Philippine politics. What's the same is, I would think, execution risk. We've seen, as you mentioned, we've seen bold announcements before. Build, previous or prior ease of doing business initiatives. These died in implementation. So the difference this time, however, is that these reforms recently discussed in the Big Bold Reform meeting, these reforms appear to be more measurable. So you've got, if I remember correctly, BIR audit systems, customs clearance being shortened, and first quarter infrastructure spending. So we can track these monthly. That's what makes this worth watching, I believe.
Now, Julia, you described this as step one in reform rehab, admitting we have a paperwork and process problem. Now, what is step two, and how do we know if the government is actually doing it?
I think step two is simply showing up to do the work. There's four things you can track here. First is, if I remember correctly, there's about 200 to 250 billion in first quarter infrastructure spending. If this actually happens and is not delayed, then that would be a good sign. And then second would be the BIR audit systems shifting from a discretionary nature to a more data-driven approach. We'll see this in terms of how the audits are being conducted. Third is the CARS program of the government. Finding or funding actually flowing into enrolled manufacturers. So these incentivize production volume, it provides some investment there. So lastly, I think foreign investment commitments turning into actual capital inflows, not just promises or MOUs. So step 2 is execution. We're tracking 4 measurable data points. So let's see.
Now, let's put this in Finance 101 terms. With the BIR going digital and moving to risk-based audits, what changes are there for businesses and for the ordinary Filipino worker?
I think the digital audits shift from what used to be more relationship-based to now more data-based. So this means, I would think, less arbitrary enforcement, fewer surprise tax bills, and more predictability in terms of this area. So for businesses, it's great because you can now plan ahead better in terms of capital allocation when you're not holding cash for potential surprise audits. For investors, lower compliance risk means lower risk premium. So companies with good governance, clean books benefit the most. Their margins improve because they're spending less time trying to figure out how to deal with the agency. So the bottom line here is that transparency favors legitimate businesses and hurts those trying to game the system. So these digital systems won't necessarily eliminate corruption, but they could make it harder to hide, I would think.
Now, Julian, you've mentioned we've heard a lot of promises in the past, a lot of systems in place, but you're saying that execution is actually the key factor here that's not actually happening. Now, from, let's say, for an investor's standpoint or a business standpoint, when the ease of doing business, is the front end fast? Is it just the execution of the last mile that needs to be worked on?
Last mile in terms of logistics and
logistics, processing of business permits and all that. So, registration is fast, but then when you go to the next steps in registration and all that, it seems that a lot of the complaints is that it becomes slower on that part.
Yes. So a great question. I'll tie it into I think one of the 4 major areas I mentioned earlier, which is customs reform, which is essentially shortening the time for customs. I think one of the biggest beneficiaries would be companies moving goods across borders on a daily basis, like food exporters, chemical distributors, manufacturers with imported inputs. For example, if your cargo clears customs in 3 days instead of 10 days. So that's 7 days of working capital freed up. So planning is improved, costs are actually going down, and then you multiply that freed up working capital across thousands of shipments annually. And it could translate into millions back into your cash flow. So this is a microcosm of what could be happening in other industries as well that have that deal with global trade. So it shows up in terms of lower inventory costs, improvement in operating margins or profit margins, and I would think faster cash conversion cycles would likewise benefit. So yeah, companies like URC, Jollibee, B&L who import raw materials and export finished products. So faster clearance is a direct margin boost, I think. So I hope you don't mind. I went into very specific examples.
Well, that's very good for the businesses, of course, especially if you have faster customs, especially if you have materials that you're importing from abroad or exporting outside. Now, you've recently upgraded your Great Market Signal score from 2.0 to 3.0, moving from underway to neutral to selective. Now, what improved and what is still holding the market back?
So what improved is the potential for infrastructure spending to accelerate. It was mentioned 200 billion pesos actually if that's actually disbursed in the first quarter of this year, that's, and please correct me if my math is wrong, that's about half a point on GDP growth already. And that's 50 basis points on GDP growth. And the possibility that if compliance costs drop, if the BIR digitization program actually works, that's probably another half point on earnings growth. So from an economic growth standpoint and from a corporate growth standpoint, those are the benefits. What's holding us? So on the great score, the improvements could be growth improving from 0 to 1. I now have a 0 score. It's either 0 or 1 for growth, since GDP is growing below 5%. Earnings growth could also be impacted favorably. So the great score right now, the market signal score, is at 3, which means it's a yellow light. It's not underweight, neither is it overweight, but it's yellow right now. It's neutral at this point, meaning balanced, selective, not overweight nor underweight. Yeah.
So do you think if these executions are done right, it will be very good for the bottom line of the businesses that are operating here?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. If execution is done right, it will impact cost structures, it will impact planning, translating into productivity from an economic standpoint, GDP, and from a corporate earnings standpoint as well. So
now, Julian, you said you've been watching 4 key data points over the next 90 days. Now, which one matters the most for market confidence and why?
Infrastructure spending, for sure. Infrastructure spending is one of the reasons why I was at underweight in terms of scoring the Philippine market. So if infrastructure spending comes back because it was frozen, then that would mean an improvement in the overall outlook for the economy. Yeah, and if infrastructure comes back in, contractor confidence comes back, capital expenditure comes back, overall risk premiums could go down, and asset values could go up, and it could attract foreign investments. And if foreign investments come in, could also benefit the currency, the Philippine peso. So there is quite a multifaceted benefit to having infrastructure spending come back in.
Now, Julian, based on your observations and research, could you give us a concrete example of how a company can actually benefit if these reforms are executed properly?
Sure. I mentioned earlier, I think I talked about DNL and URC. For DNL, for example, they import chemicals and food ingredients and process them locally, and then export finished products, if I understand it correctly, across ASEAN. So there's 2 benefits. First is that you get faster customs clearances, which means inventory turns faster. So that's working capital improvement. And then second is if the digitization program of BIR works, then the BIR audits mean less compliance costs or less compliance overhead. And that's another margin expansion benefit. For URC, export logistics become cheaper, and they can reinvest compliance savings or compliance cost savings into distribution or product development. So these benefits aren't hypothetical. You asked for a specific example. So these are not hypothetical. They're actual direct benefits in terms of the income statement if the reforms are executed.
Okay, Julian, we still have much to discuss. We'll just take a short break. This is Business Brief. welcome back to Business Brief. Still with us is Julian Tarobago Jr., an investment coach, as we continue to discuss the government's big, bold reforms. Now, Julian, from an investor's point of view, which reform matters more today? Tax administration, customs efficiency, or finally finishing infrastructure projects?
Wow, another good question. I believe it's infrastructure completion, definitely. Tax and customs reforms, improved predictability in terms of business, planning, and all that. And that's great, that's valuable. However, it's process improvement. Infrastructure completion, on the other hand, is actual growth creation, if I may say so. So finished roads, bridges, hospitals, those are what you can consider as productivity assets that can, I believe, for decades. So this plus, and economists talk about this a lot, infrastructure spending has immediate multiplier effects.
Yes.
Such as job creation, you have contractor revenues increasing, cement demand, steel consumption. So if I had to rank the three areas you mentioned for reforms, it would be infrastructure completion first, absolutely, definitely. And then it's customs second, and then tax would be the third one. Yeah, so infrastructure completion creates growth, tax and customs reforms improve predictability. So I'll go first with infra.
But again, we still have that, the looming corruption scandal still looming over the country in terms of infrastructure spending. But you were mentioning a while ago about execution. It's always a risk. Now, what is the single biggest thing that could derail these reforms, despite the good intentions, the new ways of looking at infrastructure spending and looking at logistics and everything that needs to be done in terms of ease of doing business and getting more businesses back here, not only for the local scene, but also getting more foreign investments back here in the Philippines?
Thanks, Robert. I think the biggest risk is political paralysis from here on, specifically political infighting, which can, as we saw late last year, which can freeze budget releases, it can delay disbursements, or create policy uncertainty. And if these happen, none of these reforms actually matter. So we've, as mentioned, we've seen this before. So we'll see if in the first quarter of this year, we're going to be looking closely if these reforms can actually be executed. So the risk, I think, just to add, isn't really a lack of intention. I think a lot of people have great intentions for our country. The challenge is coordination. So it's more of a lack of coordination. If I may explain, reforms like these big structural reforms need agencies to work together, and political noise makes this a bit harder to do. So yeah, to answer your question in short way, political paralysis is the biggest risk. Reforms need coordination, and political infighting or political noise can kill that coordination.
So Julian, is what you're saying that without a good foundation or a strong foundation, good intentions just remain good intentions?
Absolutely. You need to be grounded. You need to know what the goal is, what your priorities are. You need to be able to coordinate with everyone in terms of going after that goal.
And Julian, for business owners watching this today, how should they adjust expectations or strategy while these reforms are still unfolding?
Yeah, so based on those four areas of reform, one would be if your books are not in order, get them in order, because digitization or digital audits favor transparency for sure. So if your records are messy, fix it. Another one, very important, is track the data, not the headlines at this point. So watch the first quarter disbursement reports, not the press releases. So position for improvement. Maybe don't bet the farm yet until you see proof that these reforms are being executed in the best possible way. Yeah.
Now, Julian, in simple finance terms, how does cutting red tape eventually translate into higher profits, better jobs, or stronger stock performance?
That's a where do I start? Less red tape equals lower compliance costs. Lower compliance costs will result to higher profit margins, higher profitability, and higher profit margins for businesses. When businesses get higher, get more profitable, companies can then invest more in growth or pay higher wages to grow their businesses and to provide employment. So, for example, if company saves 10 million, for example, annually on compliance overhead or compliance costs, that either flows directly to the bottom line in terms of earnings, and then the stock goes up, or it gets reinvested in hiring, in capex, in expansion, which creates more jobs and provides better, higher wages. So for investors, lower friction means high return on equity, which drives stock valuations higher over time. And this is not magic. This is
it
basic
won't happen overnight.
Economics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Julian, finally, if these reforms work, these big, bold reforms that the government is trying to execute, what realistically changes for Philippine investors over the next 3 to 5 years, and what would not?
Thanks for that very important question. So, so foreign investors pick, they price in risk premium when they invest in countries or regions. So if doing business here is unpredictable in terms of surprise audits, delayed permits, frozen budgets, these foreign investors would demand higher returns to compensate for the risk. So this is the risk premium, so to speak, no? So if these reforms we've talked about improve predictability, these risk premiums go down. So when the risk premiums go down, foreign capital comes in. They're attracted because foreign risk premiums go down, foreign capital is attracted and comes in. When foreign capital comes in, the peso typically strengthens.
Yes.
And local assets become more attractive. So we're seeing this already. In January, the market was actually up. Foreign buying picked up in January as, reform announcements I think landed very well with investors. But this is still quite fragile at this point. So one execution failure or blunder and flows could reverse very quickly. So predictability lowers risk premium. And this is important for investors. These attract foreign capital, and this could help strengthen the currency, the peso also. So,
okay, Julian, thank you very much for your insights and your time today in terms of what will happen. We're still early in the year and hopefully become more optimistic in the next quarter. Thank you, Julian.
It's been a pleasure. You're welcome. Thanks also, Robert.
Okay, we'll take another short break. This is Business Brief. Rice industry stakeholders have agreed to set the buying price of palay at 17 pesos per kilo for wet palay and 21 pesos per kilo for dry palay following consultations with the Agriculture Department. Paulo Barcelon is on the line for us for the details. Paulo, go ahead.
Robert, Agriculture spokesperson Arnel de Mesa said the price agreement will apply in key rice-producing areas including Nueva Ecija, Nueva Vizcaya, Bulacan, Pangasinan, Ilocos, and other parts of Central Luzon and will remain in effect until the harvest peaks in April. The Mesa stressed that the pricing was the result of talks between government and stakeholders, including rice millers, who committed to buy palay within the 17 to 21 pesos range to protect farm gate prices during the main harvest season. The Mesa added that the agreed palay prices are intended to help maintain retail rice prices at around 40 to 45 pesos per kilo for regular and well-milled rice, while balancing the impact of imported rice entering the market. The Mesa also explains that the government is carefully timing rice importations to avoid oversupply during peak harvest months. He said that a target of up to 300,000 metric tons of imported rice is expected by February, with at least 100,000 metric tons arriving before the end of the month. The Bureau of Plant Industry has issued additional guidelines on rice importations, including the resumption of shipments covered by permits issued in January, the opening of additional ports in Bataan and La Union, and a requirement for 100% inspection by the DA. The Mesa warned that imported rice arriving beyond the February 28th deadline will be returned to the source country at the expense of importers. As of mid-January, the DA said around 178,000 metric tons of rice have entered the country since importations reopened at the start of the year. The DA maintains managing import volumes while supporting the 17 to 21 pesos palay buying price is crucial to protect farmers' income and ensure stable rice prices for consumers during the harvest season. Robert.
Thank you for that report, Paulo Barcelon. Philippine tourism is growing, but experts warn the sector may be hitting a ceiling, citing incomplete infrastructure, high costs, and lower returns compared to neighbors. The Department of Tourism reports that in 2024, tourism contributed 8.9% to the country's GDP, making it one of the sectors with the highest multiplier effect. The agency says each peso invested in tourism generated 5 pesos and 50 cents back into the economy, demonstrating a strong return on investment. The sector also provided employment to 16.4 million Filipinos last year. The DOT also reports international arrivals hitting more than 6.4 million in 2025, but the sector has not returned to pre-COVID levels. DOT Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco notes a gap with the e-travel system, which shows only 5.85 million arrivals due to exemptions for diplomats, cruise passengers, and chartered flights. Critics, however, question whether the data tells the full story. Experts warn the industry is lagging behind regional peers, hurting by subpar airports, poor roads, high food and accommodation costs, and limited transport options. Improvements are urged in the transport systems and accommodations to make the country more tourist-friendly. Economic growth and livelihoods. The country's next generation of change makers is in a spotlight, and their work is already shaping the nation's future. The 2025 Outstanding Young Men Awards honor 4 Filipino leaders, exemplifying the theme Excellence in Action, Building a Better Tomorrow. John Jamir Benzon Aruta earns recognition for environmental and climate psychology, linking climate change and mental health through groundbreaking research and community-based platforms. Raymond Marvic Bagdilat is cited for law, human rights, and indigenous peoples after years of defending ancestral domains and strengthening indigenous rights in policy and education. Rafael Dionisio is honored for regenerative tourism and circular economy entrepreneurship, restoring forests and creating sustainable livelihoods with Aita communities in Zambales. Deo Florence Onda receives award for marine science and sustainability, leading research on marine plastic pollution while advancing Philippine sovereignty in archipelagic waters. Executive Secretary Ralph Recto, speaking for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., says the honorees prove the Philippines is in good hands.
In you, we see an emboldened generation that is guided by purpose and committed to service. To our awardees, continue to lead with integrity and act with compassion in your respective fields. The nation awaits your next triumph.
For business and policymakers, these stories signal a growing pipeline of talent driving sustainability, inclusion, and long-term economic resilience. SP New Energy Corporation, now under Manny Pangilinan, plans to rebrand as MGen, Renewable Energy Holdings Incorporated, with a stock ticker MGENR. The move distances the company from Solar Philippines, led by Leandro Leviste, which faces a 24 billion peso penalty for failing to deliver promised solar power. SPNEC, which took control in December 2023, emphasizes it is a separate entity even as Leviste's Solar Philippines Power Project Holdings remains a shareholder. The company's Santa Rosa project received a termination notice from the Department of Energy, but SPNEC requests reconsideration, citing force majeure. Ayala Corporation approves a 5-year shelf registration of up to 30 billion pesos, allowing flexibility to issue peso-denominated bonds through public offerings. The move, recommended by the Finance Committee, aims to help Ayala tap debt markets quickly and efficiently when conditions are favorable. Shelf registrations enable firms to pre-register securities, speeding up capital raising without seeking separate approvals for each issuance. Ayala plans to use proceeds for general purposes, refinancing, or growth initiatives across its real estate, banking, telecommunications, and utilities businesses. GCash is expanding its reach to Filipinos overseas with a virtual U.S. account, providing seamless remittance, freelancer payments, and global payment solutions. On Business 360, Julie Ann Abalos, AVP and Head of Product for GCash International, says the platform offers competitive forex rates and low service fees to help users maximize their earnings. She notes that GCash International Services grew out of the needs of overseas Filipinos and their families, ensuring convenient and affordable money transfers. The company aims to support the digital economy, boost tourism, and provide a reliable payment platform for Filipinos worldwide.
You started as a domestic wallet. You cornered that space, and now you're looking overseas. What was the strategy? How did you guys do what you did? I mean, from an insider, tell us about how you conquered that space and how you look overseas to supplement it now.
Yeah, it really started with the international remittance business, no? I myself, I've always been in the international remittance business, no, even prior to joining GCash, and very familiar, no, with the problems, no, especially overseas Filipinos and their families face, right? So we saw that as an opportunity because GCash is widely used in the Philippines, right? A lot of their families depend on remittances, right, from abroad to the Philippines. So we saw that as an opportunity to be able to provide a seamless and more affordable and a convenient way to receive remittances. So by 2019, no, we sort of relaunched the international remittance business, and then the pandemic happened in 2020. So we were ready to service Filipinos because they can go out. They can go to the remittance centers to get their money. And that was really what sparked it somehow.
Yeah, the best business ideas are born out of basic needs.
InLife Benefits is rebranding to highlight specialized corporate solutions and enhance employee wellness services. After acquiring Generali Philippines in May 2025, InLife launches its new identity to streamline its portfolio and prioritize life insurance and corporate benefits. Executive Chair Nina Agua says the move delivers a lifetime for good experience. Meanwhile, CEO Noemi Azura calls it a reaffirmation of the company's purpose to meet today's workforce needs. InLife offers comprehensive employee benefits, including telemedicine, medicine reimbursement, mental health services, and digital platforms for easy access. For businesses, the rebrand signals a more agile partner ready to support employee wellness and corporate benefits. Crypto custody startup BitGo Holdings prices its U.S. initial public offering above expectations, raising $212.8 million and valuing the company at $2.08 billion. The Palo Alto-based firm sold 11.8 million shares at $18 each, surpassing the marketing range of $15 to $17 per share. BitGo is the first digital asset company to debut on the U.S. stock market in 2026, providing a test for investor appetite in the crypto sector amid regulatory uncertainty. The company will list on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol BTGO, with Goldman Sachs and Citigroup serving as lead underwriters. We continue with more business news. This is Business Brief. Vietnam is heading toward a quick, consensus-driven leadership decision, with current party chief Tu Lam poised for reappointment. Delegates of the Vietnam Communist Party began voting Thursday to select their general secretary as the party shortened its Congress, signaling strong support to Lam. So originally scheduled to run until Sunday, the Congress now may end as early as Friday, suggesting little to no internal division over key leadership posts. The 1,600 delegates will elect 200 Central Committee members, who will then pick the party chief and 17 to 19 Politburo members for a prearranged list. No official timetable has been announced for the final vote, but officials say it could happen as soon as Thursday. For businesses and investors watching Vietnam, this early consensus signals political stability, something that could shape policy and economic planning in the years ahead. The Philippines is taking the lead in its region's efforts to jumpstart political dialogue in Myanmar, a country still ravaged by conflict since the 2021 coup. According to Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro, the Philippines welcomes various political and ethnic groups from army-ruled Myanmar to a stakeholders meeting as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations 2026 chair. She says participants shared perspectives on implementing the ASEAN 5-point consensus, focusing on de-escalation, humanitarian aid, transnational crime, and political dialogue. Myanmar's military is currently holding a general election, which critics call a sham. Conflict continues across the country, and ASEAN's peace plan remains largely unimplemented. The meeting comes a week before ASEAN foreign ministers gather in Cebu for regional retreat. For ASEAN and the Philippines, this dialogue highlights the challenge of mediating a conflict where peace plans have struggled and the stakes for regional stability remain high. Hong Kong's court have opened a landmark national security trial targeting former leaders of a group that held annual Tiananmen Square vigils. The trial covers Lee Cheuk-yan, 68, Albert Ho, 74, and Chow Hang-tung, 40, who now face charges of inciting subversion of state power, offenses that carry up to 10 years in prison. Once a legal symbol of the city's relative freedom, the June 4 commemorations have been blocked since 2020 after COVID pandemic curbs and the imposition of China's national security law. Dozens queued outside West Kowloon courts despite cold weather, with heavy police presence ensuring tight security. For businesses and observers, the trial underscores Hong Kong's shrinking space for civic freedom, a factor that could affect the city's image as a financial and cultural hub. Asian shares mostly advanced on Thursday, tracking Wall Street after U.S. President Donald Trump walked back from imposing tariffs on 8 European countries over Greenland and ruled out using military force to take control of the territory. The S&P ASX, All Ordinaries, FTSE Bursa Malaysia, KLCI, HNX 30, Nikkei 225, Thailand SET, Shanghai Composite, and BSE Sensex indexes trade higher, while the Hang Seng, JSX Composite, and KSE 100 indexes register losses. On currencies, the US dollar is at 158.72 against the yen, 7.80 against the Hong Kong dollar, 128 against the Singapore dollar, 14.68 against the South Korean won, and 31.34 against the Thai baht, while the Australian dollar trades at 68 cents against the greenback. Gold prices slip, oil prices remain mixed, and cryptocurrencies see modest losses. South Korea's stock benchmark, the Kospi, hits 50 points, for the first time, surging on gains in chip makers and automakers amid artificial intelligence optimism. The index rose as much as 2.2% to 5019, marking its highest level on record and fulfilling a promise made by President Lee Jae-myung in just over 6 months in office. The Kospi has climbed nearly 20% so far this month, following a 76% rally in 2025, the largest annual gain since 1999, driven by AI-related chips and capital market reforms. Investors are focusing on South Korea's technology and automotive sector as key drivers of this record-breaking run. Market volatility spiked after President Donald Trump backpedaled on Greenland tariff threats, sparking a rally on Wall Street. Ross Gerber, President and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management, says Trump's rhetoric creates unnecessary market fluctuations but also presents buying opportunities. Gerber urges investors to focus on company earnings and fundamentals rather than daily extreme statements or political rhetoric. He notes that with tariffs off the table, markets had already priced in a calming of trade tensions, making Greenland less of a factor for investors.
It seems like Trump really creates a lot of volatility for no reason when he really had no intention of following through with this. But, you know, we've gotten used to this with Trump, and it gave us an opportunity to buy stocks yesterday, so we were quite happy about it.
IMP led today's market rally, soaring 50% to become the day's top gainer. GPH and SPNEC also posted strong gains, jumping 16 and 15% respectively. But none matched IMP's surge. Other notable movers include GMAP and MAC, which saw more modest increases. The Philippine share snapped its 4-day losing streak after ending in the positive territory. The PSCI closes over 1% higher to 63.98. Among the sectoral indices, only mining and oil ends in the red, with holding firms rising the most at over 1%. Advancers outpaced decliners 116 to 82, with value turnover at 6.6 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks are in the green, with SP New Energy rising the most at over 15%. In currencies, the peso closes at 59.16 against the US dollar, up from the previous close of nearly 59.26. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert San. Join us again tomorrow for the stories that help you plan your next big, bold business moves. Only here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.